He was practically.
Definitely was the one of the ways that kids were introduced to like kind of a little Reiki culture, right? So pretty weird. French.
I found it really like annoying. I was like, ew, gross. Like I never want to meet a guy like that.
Alright, let's move on. Okay, so one of my favorite shows was Super Friends. And, you know, this led to, I love Super Friends on Saturday mornings. This led to a lot of confusion for me, especially since Robin had just as good as legs as Wonder Woman. Look at that. So they're like,
it's you animation cell.
But with the Justice League came all kinds of heroes sort of around them. So these are some of the ones I remember. Apache Chief, Black Vulcan, Samurai, El Dorado. Which is gold, I think. So do you guys remember these comics or these cartoons and your thoughts? Was it positive for you or was it negative growing up?
This is the thing that always gets me. This is a great example. What happens a lot of times when they're creating characters, particularly when they create a race, it seems like they always want to go race first. They never just go, let's make a well-rounded character who just happens to be black, or who just happens to be Asian. It's kind of like, no, we must make the blackest of black characters. Asian of Asian characters. You know? And so it's like, it's one of those ways where you kind of see like, they think they're in the right, because it's like, hey, we're making a point to make this character. It's like, well, thanks. I mean, it's like, you could have just made the character and then just had to be a certain race. It's like, oh, you're almost like overdoing it, overcompensating for the race at that point.
I'm also equally disturbed with how high and tight their costumes are. Like, Samurai is leaving that to the imagination. So, how about you guys? Like, watching these cartoons, what were your thoughts as kids? Like, totally loved it, like, kind of questioned? Like, what was just some of your thoughts? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead, in the back. Yeah, late 60s, yeah.
Well, before then there was nothing.
Yeah.
So
it was something. Yeah.
And so that was closest you got.
Yeah. And for decades, it was like every African American hero had to wear black before it.
Yeah, so that stopped, right? Check out a black comment here.
There's a comment over here about your culture. All the way in the back. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just thinking that they already had in DC, they were developing Black Lightning and had a much better costume that didn't look like something out of the 1940s cereal.
With the lightning arrows pointing down to his nether regions. And then one more in the pink, yes.
Oh, I was wondering, with what Andre said, I don't know if you've watched Young Justice, but do you think they did a better job of trying to correct it by making the characters minorities, but not making their names so obvious?
Yeah, that's why I got canceled. They don't do a good job. It's like, oh, that's good. Canceled.
So we'll definitely jump into that topic, the whole idea of, again, race bending and whitewashing and all that good stuff, for sure. But, so in 1973, was the first introduction of the first, like, Asian American hero in comics by Marvel Comics. Now, if you imagine an Asian American hero, what would he look like in 1973? Let's hear it. Samurai, anyone else? Bruce Lee. What's his weapons? Anybody? Swords. Whatever. So here we go. We have Shang-Chi, the master kung fu. Yeah. He is literally deflecting throwing stars and throwing them at the same time, which is awesome. Wow. Amazing.
He looks like a tragedy.
He does. It's probably the same artist. Okay, followed by in '77 came Black Lightning. So you know he was rocking it. Yeah, right?
That's my dad.
So let's hear from you guys. In this era of comics, what were y'all's sort of thoughts? And again, were they positive? Were they role models? Go ahead, here on the side.
I can't help but think about like if an actual black person, Asian person was actually drawing these characters, they would actually look like that.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's a white person kind of trying to draw Asian or black people.
Yes, go ahead.
I also think part of the thing, if you look at the mainstream characters like Superman and Wonder Woman, everything was so American at that time. And so to do anything different, to have it be set apart, it almost went completely to the other side.
And lastly over here.
I think the two exceptions in the 70s were Sunfire
Yep.
and the Falcon. And I remember reading someplace somebody said how upset they were about changing his backstory, because originally he was a soldier worker, and then they gave him like this backstory to make him slightly more quote unquote. But he was and he was the only one that didn't have black in him.
Excellent. All right. So let's move on. As we move into this era of comics into like TV, TV was a huge catalyst for change when it came to culture and pop culture. So these are a couple of big heroes that are out during the 70s or 80s, 70s and 80s, early 70s and 80s. So, these characters today would have a hard time existing, I think. But they were, for those of us looking for heroes of color when we were young, they were like sort of heroes. But what were y'all's thoughts on Mr. T, Bruce Lee, other sort of similar sort of characters and how they played a role and for you guys?
I just want to be clear that Speedy was the last Latino character we've been talking about.
No, wait. You wait. We have one coming up, so.
Certainly not your fault,
Yeah.
but this was a little bit before my time. But I think we didn't see a lot of positive, powerful characters who were sort of the main character. As you guys know, villains were usually the minority characters, and they were presented in a way that was very, in some ways, very racist. So I think this was a step in a good direction.
Yeah. It was one of the first times that there were minorities with real power, and Mr. T, Bruce, those were like synonymous with power and strength, and they were like, at least Mr. T was like the guest star on so many different shows during that time. So.
Oh, I love Mr. T. I wish he still exists today. No, it kind of goes back to what you were saying. I think that, well, first of all, when you're young, you don't really know something. I watched Speedy and Lone Ranger with Tonto and Apache Chief, and like at the time, I didn't really know any clue. It's like, oh, they're superheroes. Like, you don't think that far. It's only until you get older you realize that. But yeah, but it was that thing. It was just like, well, yes, is Mr. T a caricature? Sure, but he's also awesome. So you have this weird dynamic because you're like, yeah, I like this guy. He's powerful. Everyone likes him. I mean, he was definitely an icon for any race and stuff like that. So after a while, you just kind of get this whole thing of like, well, yeah, I guess it could be more politically correct or whatever else, but it did make itself to be a character that you could identify with and enjoy. And then he himself took that into a very positive way with teaching kids to drink the milk and stay in school and all that kind of stuff. So, it was kind of a role model in that sense.
Yeah, so I definitely think these guys fall into the stereo awesome category, as well as Poncherello here. So one of the first few Chips, one of my favorite shows, one of the first few brown-skinned leading actors in the show. And even though this was a buddy cop show, clearly he was the popular one in the lead. In fact, it's kind of John there standing uncomfortably close behind him. Right behind him.
It's very loyal.
Yeah.
But I kept trying to push him out of the shot.
But his character wasn't necessarily like overly stereotypical, and he was a strong leading man, and I thought he really was a big leap forward to where there was, like you said, very little representation on TV, for sure. Did you have a question or anything? Just wanted to ask.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I did.
I love him so much. I'm not kidding you. I had the Poncherello. I had this, right? What do you do with the Ponch character? I have no idea. He talks on the radio, basically.
Yeah.
And so, but I had this guy who was awesome. I didn't have a motorcycle, so he had to ride a horse. Anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
There were actually possibly Latino characters in black and white during the black and white era because you had Cisco Kid, you had Zorro, you had all these other characters, and even a couple of westerns had Latino characters who were minor cast. That sort of went away.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 70s, they all sort of disappeared.
Yeah, go ahead, real quickly.
So Tony, I want to propose that Star Trek, the original series, was like a turning point, right?
Yes.
Because now, hey, it's okay to hang out with a Vulcan, it's okay to hang out with a blue-skinned Andorian.
Yeah.
That's just you could substitute any race, right? Any human race.
Yeah.
So I think that really, and then you started to see this is just a huge turning point.
Yeah. With the first interracial kiss on screen and yeah, all that for sure. Yeah, thank you. So let's from here, let's talk about let's bring it more modern day and talk about this is I think everyone was probably here for this opening day. So Star Wars, all right. So the Phantom Menace has been under a lot of criticism over the years, but one of the more poignant ones was its use of aliens and the Pneumonians kind of looking like kind of flat skins, their accents, as well as Watto kind of being pig-nosed and maybe like Jewish kind of stereotype. And then our beloved Jar Jar and the Gungans being like, big lips and talking Jamaican and all that. When you guys watch this, did this strike you as kind of weird, or was it sort of like, hey, I'm just glad Star Wars back on the screen? And so, yeah, go ahead.
It was super weird because all right, I know everybody remembers kind of like waiting so long. Like I was in the line like 4 p.m. or something. Right. So we get in there, oh yeah, so I'm sure it's gonna be great. And then you have like this accent, and it's like super duper. Like, we're really trying to play up the stereotype accent. It's like, it really took me out of the film because it became a joke. Yeah. And I was expecting to see, like, Star Wars do that. And it was almost like a joke. And then it was like, well, if this is serious, is this how they feel when they're writing about these? And then it gets a little deeper because then it's like, well, then is it like disrespectful or purpose? But it took me out. It was like almost like a joke.
I think what was striking to me is that for all of the people involved with the creation, the production, the writing, even the special effects, the makeups, nobody had a problem with it. Or if they had a problem with it, their voice wasn't loud enough. And I think that that's troublesome when it comes to who are the creators, who are the people behind what makes these huge films. And the other issue with these characters is that they're all if they're not seen as sort of negative, they're villains, they're unlikable, or they're weak, or they're in the way. They're not seen as empowered and purposeful.
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of in denial about the whole film in general. I'm such a big Star Wars fan. I camped overnight, everything, but so I really wanted to like the movie, and I think even afterwards, plot's not great, like the characters are okay, even with this. But I was like, well, I kind of tolerated it, and so I think, but definitely I forgot what the top left guy is, but his accent kind of threw me off when I first heard it. I was like, wait, are they trying to be a little like the Asian thing?
Yeah, at least they're big round eyes instead of slanting eyes. Okay, just one more comment here, go ahead.
Just from a different point of view, I remember waiting in line many hours to see Star Wars, and when
we waited in line together. So I think 9 hours.
And I remember thinking, hey, that was okay. I kind of enjoyed that. Great final end sequences, and as a movie, I was thinking this is a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. And then in follow-up conversations with Asian American and African American friends of mine, they were like, yeah, I didn't like that movie. I'm like, why not? And they're like, dude, did you not see the stereotypes? I'm like, no. So and then I kind of really opened my eyes to my sometimes blinders on, like seeing how Hollywood is portraying other races and portraying stereotypes.
Yeah. Okay, last comment, go ahead.
I came here a little bit late, so I'm going to...
Yeah, we noticed. All right. Come on, dude.
I have an interesting take on this. Every time we talk, this panel comes up, everyone picks on Phantom Menace, and it's a little played out. It's not a great movie. Yeah. But it's like, you have to be the death of you now, when it was 10 years old. But since you're going back in the past, honestly, I find Luke and Sons of the Fifth Element far more effective.
Yeah.
And no one ever brings that up. I mean, Chris Tucker was ridiculous.
Yeah.
He was 20 times what you are.
Can you repeat his comment? Sorry.
And if you're going to, let's kind of bring the current day, honestly. What's I love Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones is confident in character. The fact that you have all the dark slaves raising her up in the air, come on, you see that? The very first black character introduced on Game of Thrones was Iron, cool character. But first one I want to fuck the queen. Like, come on, you're a black guy. Essentially saying you want to raise the white man. So.
Yeah. Well, we have yet to offend, so here we go. Because everyone's favorite movie coming up? Yeah! Oh, So let's talk about whitewashing and talking about this whole idea of taking sort of ethnic characters and appropriating it and becoming your own. Now, in general, the movie was just that, right? But what are your thoughts on this whole idea of whitewashing and sort of taking characters of another culture and becoming your own? Is that helpful or hurtful? Your thoughts on it?
This reminds me of, I went to, when I first moved to LA, I remember going to like, you go to like different classes and stuff, like about acting or directing or whatever. I remember going to a writing seminar, and it was, I forgot who the person was, but she was like head of some writing department, and people were pitching ideas for different stuff. And I remember somebody pitching this idea for like, oh, we're gonna do like this wacky comedy where a person opens up fortune cookies and whatever the fortune cookies happens in real life. And I will never forget, she distinctly said that the person that was writing was like, envisioned John Cho as being the lead of it. And the person who was leading it was like, it's a great idea for a premise, but you're probably going to want to have a white actor be the lead of it because no one's going to want to see a movie with an Asian character as the star. And then cut to a couple years later, Harold and Kumar come out. Completely watch that. But yeah, I think there is still this feeling that it's tough, or it's seen as a tough thing to open up a movie with a minority as the lead, or they have to be the sidekick of somebody else. Which is why a lot of people feel like you can't open up a movie with a female lead, you know, like Hunger Games or Twilight, or but I'm saying, there's a lot of people who feel like the women-led movies do not do well, and we've seen a lot of those do very well, and so there is. So that's why. Well,
Hollywood, like other industries, follows the dollars, and if the audience isn't buying, if we're not buying comics and watching shows and going to movies that were led by minority characters or creators, then that influences.
And the big cop-out that always uses, we don't think it'll do well internationally. There's this belief that if you have minority-led movies, they will not do well overseas, and that's a lot of movies make a lot of their money overseas. So that's usually the cop-out. That's their non-racial racial way of saying it. We want them, but that's what happens.
The sad thing is, if they had stuck to source material, it probably would have killed.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, but we'll move on. Another example with Tonto and Almadale. But we won't. We'll just move on to this.
We're just I think just to jump in regards to, Andre really pulled the scope out, not to pick on the comics industry, because this really isn't a comics industry problem. It's a larger social problem. We see it in mainstream TV, film, media, everything. And I think that people, if there's anyone in this room at all who's thinking, well, does it really matter if it's Johnny Depp, or does it really matter if they change the, race or ethnicity or gender of that character, to think about the impact of that transition, and that there's this term called symbolic annihilation. It's the impact of the underrepresentation of ethnic minorities, racial minorities, gender minorities, in the sense that what the message is that when you see these films, when you see these TV shows, it undervalues groups of people. And those groups of people hear those messages. What is my value in society? So there's a huge impact when those little changes are made.
Yeah. Well, I think an interesting conversation, part of the conversation too, is the opposite of the whitewashing is also taking mainstream characters and switching up and becoming an ethnic character. Now many of you guys might not know this, but there was a universe once where David Hasselhoff was Nick Fury. Right? So he was the first on-screen Nick Fury. I think no one wants to return to this. But thankfully, because of the Ultimates universe, Nick Fury became Samuel Jackson, and he was incredibly awesome. What are y'all's thoughts on this whole taking characters and changing their ethnicity and sort of appropriating it on the other direction?
I mean, I like it, but if you think about the reverse, if they took an ethnic character and made them white or something, I wouldn't be okay with that. But for some reason, I accept it when they did this.
Another example, just to throw in here, is of course Miles Morales from the Ultimate Spider-Man, and so that's another example. But yeah, let's hear your thoughts on this. Go ahead.
I don't know if you're going to have this on the next slide, but the current new casting of Michael B. White as
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B.
White.
Torch.
And the backlash that guy, I feel still shouldn't matter as long as the origin story of the character, if it has no race relation whatsoever, you can switch it out all you want. I mean, but to have like someone brought up while I was having a discussion, well, what happened if, you know, when they make the Black Panther movie, let's switch him out, make him white. I'm like, no, he's from Africa. I mean, great, there are white Africans, you know, Charlize Theron, you know, American citizen, should be, you know, African American.
Yeah.
But you can't do that. It can go either way as long as the core of that character, that story, isn't, you know, steeped in their racial identity. It's just fine.
Yeah. Real quickly, your thoughts also on the topic of.
I just love that that's always the response. Anytime you talk about a character in black, that is always the response. What if we make the Black Panther white? It's like, well, that's your answer right there. That's the only character you can keep coming up with to change to the other race. So yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with origin story. And I think a lot of it, you know, it is a weird thing because you gotta take into account that a lot of these stories, you know, books, movies, even comics, these are all based on properties that are several years old.
Yeah.
At a time when you wouldn't write or you wouldn't create racial characters unless they were Apache Chief or like we didn't have them. So what do you do when you want to modernize these materials, but you can see that it doesn't cater to all audiences? And there are going to be certain characters where it's like, yeah, you can change the origin. I'm really weirded out about the whole Ninja Turtles movie with Shredder because Shredder is a Rokusaki and now he's a businessman. So it's like, it happens on all fronts, but it's not, but a lot of people like to put it in this, they want to be like, oh, let's be all PPC, so it's like every version counts. It's like, no, just because you're changing the race, it's a different case for a different character. Yeah. So if someone is just plain generic, if Jimmy Olsen or whoever else turns to a different race, it's not going to really change anything. But yeah, are we ever going to see Superman or Batman black? Probably not. Once you do that icon status, it's very tough. But there's a lot of random characters that we either are not recognizable in mainstream culture, or they just do not have enough of a history that you could play around with it and make some new and interesting characters. And sometimes in some cases, they can be better characters as a result.
Yeah. Purple hair. I'm sorry.
Well, that kind of plays into what I was going to say is that it actually benefits, I think, the characters more because you're taking a story that wasn't based off the fact that they were of color or different, and just giving them same treatment as if they were a white character. They're getting just a story and a background that has nothing to do with, that particular, they don't have to play that up to make them fit. It's just a character. It's not, So I think usually those characters end up being better for it because they're just people.
Yeah. And then jump in front, yeah.
I think, think about Thor and Heimdall and then Hogan. I can't remember his name exactly. But remember, they changed that. There was a huge big hullabaloo about it. But did Hollywood change it because they were, it didn't matter to them, or did they change it because of the money and they just wanted to, just get a bigger audience too? So I mean, there's that whole other issue there too. So I mean, I don't think we should forget that as well. The nice thing would be is just you make a film and get the best people possible to play the role, and then you just did that. That's
well, I think you bring up an interesting point about Heimdall. So we all know, we love the Avengers. Avengers have done it's been a huge shift in just recent pop culture just because of the success of the Avengers worldwide. And of course, it's completely blown up the Marvel Universe and changed everything about movies. But I think what's also been interesting is that there's also been this sort of surgence of like the sidekick black guy. And whatever race it is, but the sidekick black guy, and unfortunately the sidekick female, but really it's like these minority positions that are significant but kind of on the side. And I just get your thoughts on that. Do you see that trend? Do you think it's a good trend because all these characters are very competent, they're strong, but they're not necessarily in the forefront yet? But what are y'all's thoughts when you're seeing this emerge?
There are 3 black guys on drink at the time. I love Falcon. I was like, yeah.
Falcon.
Woo! Great, yeah. The 15 minutes he fought was really awesome. The Winter Soldier was like, mean, but no, I think it's good. And, you know, I mean, I get it. I mean, as much as I'm all like, yes, let's put black people right on the front of the movie poster. I know that there's still, you know, the South still exists. I know what goes on. And then you gotta give, sometimes you gotta give them sprinkles, and that's what I feel like what's going on here. You get a little bit of Nick Fury, you get a little bit of War Machine, a little bit of Falcon, you're like, all right, cool. You get a little bit more as time progresses. And then maybe you do get to the point where you go, okay, we're gonna have a Black Panther movie. At this point, you can pretty much say it's a Marvel movie, and a bunch of people are going to go see it. And so that's what you hope is happening, is that eventually you got Zoe Saldana coming out with Guardians of the Galaxy. It just gets to this point where then you just don't think about it. It's just like it's no longer like this is a Black movie, it's just like, oh, another Marvel movie, let's go. And then you can just have anyone leave. That's what you hope happens as a result of all of this. So plus they have a character that starts with the word black that's not a Black person. So Black Widow. So there you go. They're changing all kinds of things in there.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yes, speak up.
I've always seen the sidekick sort of pop out and say, okay, this is put one on each other. Here's my question. What happened in 10 years since Blade first came out? I mean, not only did you have a black character, you get the trilogy. Regardless what you think about Blade Trinity.
I'll repeat it.
Regardless of what you think about Blade Trinity, it was a trilogy. I've never seen another black character do that. What happened since then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you bring a great point that really the renaissance that we're experiencing with comics and movies is because of Blade. Pretty much they took a risk, I mean, because it was the dark ages of Superman 4 and Batman and Robin, and no one wanted to touch a comic book property, and Wesley Snipes donned the sword and sunk in the shades, and he made that work. And then from that point on, there was a willingness to put some money down, and that's how we got X-Men, the first X-Men movie. But it really was, Blade had a huge part of kind of launching, you know, comics.
Yeah, Blade, woo.
Well, I think what Rick pointed out, I think at that time, in line had to do with name. Like Wesley Snipes was a brand. Like back when you look about like early late 90s, early 2000s, there were just some actors where you put them in a movie, no matter what it was, you go see that. We don't have that much anymore. I mean, we're seeing nowadays that big name stars are bombing movies, and so studios are scared, and anything that they see is risky is going to be a risk. So yes, I don't think you can make a Blade movie now. I think that I think studios.
More than that, we need one.
No, I'm saying more than we need one, but I'm saying if you were to tell a studio today make Blade like you did 10 years ago, I don't think anyone would do it.
Kind of jump on against yourself because I think even more so you can make one because it's a Marvel property. Well, you know, you put the Marvel name there. You know?
Well, yeah, I'm saying that in that sense, but I'm just saying in general, just like saying we want to make a vampire movie. I mean, you do have vampires that are popular, but I'm just saying that at the time, yeah, they took that risk because it's a property and Wesley Snipes was a big star. To say if you want to do it now, I mean, yes, and they hate it if you match the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I'm just saying in general, we want to make a black superhero movie. Period. I think, especially in the sense of like Blade was, I think it would be a lot difficult for a studio to say yes to that right away. It takes how many years of these movies that we've been making to go, okay, we'll consider it, even with Black Panther. Okay, now we'll consider it in phase 17 or whatever. Because we've got enough money made that even if it does, okay, we'll deal with it.
Well, we mentioned Michael B. Jordan as the Torch. Is there anyone here of a certain ethnicity or person of color that actually feels like that doesn't like these kind of changes and don't consider this a wrong answer or anything? I'm just curious if there's anyone here, or is in general is like, yay, let's go for it. So let's go here back.
I
don't like this change just because it changes the origin story of the actual character itself.
Okay.
And by changing the origin story to kind of change it, I'd be fine if the Human Torch is black and the Invisible Girl, the Invisible Woman is black as well. You know, I'd be fine with that because it has the same story and it's friends. To choose one, I think they chose, let's get a good-looking woman and a good-looking white woman to draw more audience in, and choose that, and then, hey, let's go fringe again and kind of go with the wacky choice of choosing a black person, which should never be the correct option.
Do we know the story yet? Is he like adopted? What's the deal? Do we know?
Half brother?
They just go for it?
It is. Yeah, I thought I read it.
I'm sorry, say what?
I thought I read he's adopted.
Okay, that's great. Okay, yay, adoption.
But, can I? Okay.
No, we haven't heard from Batgirl yet, so I'm sorry.
Well, just a point about that.
there are multicultural families, even from the same parents, who have very dark-skinned and very light-skinned children sometimes.
Yeah, blended families, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's plenty of pictures on the internet, examples of this, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. It doesn't even have to fundamentally change who the characters are.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to address an earlier point about whitewashing versus the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. Color washing.
I think that, and I have a hard time explaining to people why they're different things, but the fact is, there are so few examples of characters of color. There's a handful, and when you take one away, it's very noticeable. It's noticeable to especially to the community that person represents, and to people who like that character. When you fundamentally change, the ethnic identity of that character, it's as Dr. Mahdi was saying, it's very powerful. And when you take a white character and make them a different ethnicity, it's not a fundamental attack on that whiteness. It's not because there are so many white characters. And the fact is, screenwriters are taught that white men will not go see movies about anybody but white men. So you lose a large portion of your audience if this is like taught in film school. You can go and find this information on the internet and find a lot of examples of people talking about this. If it's a movie that stars a woman, if it's a movie that stars a non-white man, then there's this strong belief that white men are not going to be interested in this movie.
Yeah.
So earlier you said that people that movies starring if movies starring women or movies starring a different ethnicity don't do well, then then they give up on it. And I think that's true, but I also think that there's this sort of placing responsibility on the audience instead of trying to make more movies better movies with stars of something other than a white male. That's especially as a point of view character. It's not just a sidekick. Can we have a point of view character who is a female? A point of and isn't a chick flick? Can we have a point of view character where it's a black person and it's not a movie for black people only?
Absolutely. And comics are doing this. Comics are a great place for there to be change like that, where it's women that are depicted differently than they have been in the past, as well as other nationalities. For instance,
DC kind of sucks right now.
well, for instance, the 99 came out, which is about Islamic heroes. I have not read this. Has anyone read this comic here? Yeah, I'm excited for it. I haven't had a chance to really dive into it, but I'm excited that, again, it's a completely different take on sort of the teen hero genre, so I think it's awesome. Also, recently, Miss Marvel came out. As a Muslim teen, and so get your thoughts on this. This is a big change. She dropped her Goldilocks, and she's younger, and she's got a scarf. So, y'all's thoughts?
I loved it. Like, I was just, because they didn't focus on race really. Like, I like how they kind of sprinkle it in, like, how she talks to her parents, but it's more just her being, like, awkward teen, and you just kind of get to know her personality, and it's not just all about her race.
Yeah.
And it's well written, and her character building is really good.
Let me get to her and over you.
I completely agree. I think the way that she's portrayed is fantastic, and that it's clear that her cultural identity is really important to her, and we see her interact with her family, and we see the struggle with the majority culture, and then her her family culture, and but what defines her isn't her ethnicity or culture necessarily. It's that she's bright. It's that she feels, it's that kind of superhero characteristic, like, I feel different. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something. Yeah. And she's empowered, and she has conviction. And I struggled a little bit with the first issue in that when she transforms, she has blonde hair. Has anyone read? I thought that was a little weird. And if you actually read the second issue, you understand that, she's a bit powerless in the way that she transforms, and she does have blonde hair, but she actually struggles with that identity. Like, why does a superhero have to be blonde and pale? Is this really the identity that I want as Miss Marvel?
And so I look forward to kind of seeing how that unfolds and how her identity as a superhero could actually be more in alignment with her cultural identity.
Well, can you speak into the whole, like, the importance of stereotypes? Are stereotypes bad for a character?
Most times. Some are pretty funny, I know that. But I mean, it's very tough. I mean, the thing is that no matter what you do, no matter how PC you try to be or how stereotypical, someone's gonna hate it. I mean, especially on the internet. So you know, but that's why I'm saying it goes back to the way I think that you can do it best is, like you said, just make characters. Just make characters. You know, I think we mentioned this in the Comic-Con battle. Like the combats I hate hearing is like, oh, I don't know how to write a black character. I don't know how to write a character. Like, you can write aliens, interdimensional worlds, different identities, infinite Earths, but a black dude, whoa, I can't touch it. Just make up good characters, and then if they happen to be different races, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, so be it. It's just that's our world, that's part of our life, and that's how it should be represented as well in media, of all kinds of media.
Yeah, and I don't think that stereotypes are so bad. I just think when the character, that's all they are the stereotype. I like to see them step up and evolve and to become something way beyond what you would expect for a typical stereotype. The example I have is the character Glenn. If you've noticed, we've been so devoid of Asian representation all up to this point, but you know, Glenn started out as, he kind of looked like a Chinese food delivery boy, kind of had his cap and all that, and now he's like a solid stand-up guy, and it's not really about race, it's really about him just being a hero and a leader. And in fact, on that show specifically, you see so many different nationalities and positions of strength with Michonne and others that it's a very multi-ethnic cast, and so my deduction is that what really solves all the racial problems, zombies! Yeah. Look at those two, man. It was like, it's all nothing but love between them.
Getting back to Ms. Marvel, I just wanted to say, as a Pakistani American, the characters I've had to identify with are like Apu. And reading Ms. Marvel, the first issue, it was the first time where I felt like I could really see myself in that character. And the reason why I think it's resonating so much is it's these universal ideas of feeling alone and feeling different really are done with great justice in Ms. Marvel, and it's been fantastic to see that.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, go ahead.
Do you think they're going to have mixed heroes, mixed, and growing up as a kid was really awkward, watching TV and reading comics, going to movies, and trying to find that character that related to me. It's weird. It's like multi-ethnic couples are just like such a taboo, and multi-ethnic kids we shouldn't even exist. We're a person. So do you ever see us possibly being the hero at some point?
I hope.
I really look forward to that because I find that the most interesting characters to me are the ones that are more ambiguous, that I can't quite define their ethnicity because, frankly, that's how I grew up. But I say what you will about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV series, they do have two prominent Asian characters. One is Asian American, and the actress is Chloe Bennett.
Yeah, Chloe Bennett, right.
And
she's half
Chinese, and Ming-Na Wen. And so it's kind of exciting to see, two Asian characters who are, of different, backgrounds, and the show isn't about that, so it's great to see.
Although you see her as, Agent May is, of course, martial artist. Throws kicks around once in a while, so.
Like the only actress they could find was Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah, right.
Basically from Lucy Liu, like.
That's right. Yes, go ahead. That's right.
also showing people that people can exist together.
That's right.
While there are differences aren't bad.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, go ahead. Speak up.
I was just going to point out, like, the most prominent mixed race character I can think of actually dates back to the early 90s in Gargoyles and Samaza.
Yeah!
And they really focused a lot on the family, and like the parents were very obviously different races, and the brother was very different than she did. And it's sad that that's, you know, almost 20 years ago. I think it is 20 years ago, and there hasn't been an example, I think, quite like that since then.
I wanted to make a movie so bad.
Yeah.
Go ahead, last question, then we'll wrap up.
Something I noticed, especially in particularly when the straight up on they all come with the sure. There's always something else.
Sure, yeah.
Every time they get a woman of color, it's like, they make it seem like the only desire they don't think is white male. And I'm not trying to crucify white men, because I believe on our part, we have our own faults. I know personally, I know African Americans that would go see a Tyler Perry movie before we see something like 12 Years a Slave.
Let's jump into that. Emily and Andrea, how come you guys only like white dudes? Tell us. No, your thoughts on the topic.
I grew up with like mostly white people in my younger age, so I did like a lot of white boys, and they rejected me. And then I kind of started.
Who would reject?
No one would dance with me. And then I just kind of started like shifting towards like, I don't know, a lot of Asian people go through this like Asian pride phase, like you only want to hang out with Asians and like you only date Asians, but it's just like commonalities and like just general interests and the way you grew up, and so that's kind of like.
And then real quickly, do you, when you cosplay, you only have a couple minutes here, when you cosplay, do you feel the pressure of someone within, you know, your Psylocke or someone like that, or you obviously you're Robin, but yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to cosplay like an Asian character like Psylocke, but I just felt like, you know, I feel like these male characters are just so cool looking, like they have cooler costumes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, oh, who cares? Like, it's the first bigger cosplay I did was Han Solo, and I was like, well, you know, I'm a Star Wars fan, but who cares that he's male? Like, I'm just gonna dress as him, and I was like pretty insistent on making the costume pretty accurate, but then people were like, well, you're a woman, so you're not that accurate. But, you know, I didn't really care.
And she does an epic Darth Vader. She's got an epic Darth Vader costume with a half mask. Thing's awesome. So, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think the idea that opposites attract is actually not true. People tend to be attracted to what they know, and you know, that's my best answer. I did not grow up with other Latasians. I did not grow up with Chinese Ecuadorians. So, you know, but at the end of the day, you love who you love.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let me just a couple last thoughts here. Well, and we have time. We'll get to some questions. And so we'd be remiss if we don't mention this hero since this is Easter weekend. Jesus! Hey, let's give it up for Jesus. I'm not sure how Jesus became white, because more likely he looked more black than did white. So if you really want to know the real, if you want to know the real secret, I think he's Asian. You're Asian Jesus is where it's at.
And here's your movie right there.
The Passion of the Rice. Is there movie producer in the house? Wow. All right, so I don't want to rush this last part, but if we have a minute or two at the end, we'll take some questions. Quickly, you know, the whole multicultural battle is not a thing that only creators are part of, but it's everyone in this room. Everyone that reads comics, watches shows. The internet has become a huge platform for change. And really it takes all of us collectively to be able to speak into it, to share your passion, to advocate. As we talked about already, it takes people buying stuff. Dollars goes a long way. So buying comics like Miss Marvel and others, watching shows, supporting movies, all that is hugely important. And then lastly, I'm going to just go real quickly down the line here. We have all of our contact information and websites. Tell us, how do we find out more about you?
Yes, the best way to interact with me is through Twitter. I'm at ArkhamAsylumDoc on Twitter. My website is Under the Mask Online, where I talk about fictional characters and do psychological analyses of heroes and villains and people that love them. And finally, I have a show, The Arkham Sessions. It's a weekly podcast. I take, my co-host is here, Brian Ward, and we take every episode of Batman, the animated series, and do a psychological analysis in depth, with the lens of a clinical psychologist. So that's my current project.
And your panel later today.
Oh, thank you. The panel later today is at 7:30. It's the psychology of Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Nice. Real quickly, I am crazy for Comic-Con on Twitter, as well as on my website. Emily?
I'm ambiguous on Twitter. I don't tweet that much, but find me on Facebook.com/TheStylishGeek or my website, TheStylishGeek.com. It's just a daily fashion geeky blog, so check it out.
Thank you.
You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/BlackNerdComedy. I make videos every week. You can tweet me at BlackNerd and BlackNerd on Twitter and Instagram. And then I have a Facebook page, Black Nerd Comedy, as well. So that's it. Oh, hey, it was cool. I had a question that someone asked me, a pre-question.
Okay.
Last night, so that cool.
Go in with this.
I think this guy is Sean.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, this is Sean Long from BKB, and he just sent it to me last night.
Oh, yeah.
What it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to come up real quick?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, cool.
Give him a mic if you want to.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Sean. The theme of everything that's going on here, I am multicultural, even though I look white. I'm actually, my mom's a Filipino immigrant, and I'm also part Latino, I'm part
you hide it well.
Yeah, so real quick, I just want to say that I have someone in my life that's also multicultural, super to me. My girlfriend Natalie, and actually could you come up over here real quick? I wanted to say Natalie, ever since I met her, she's been an inspiration to me. She's been a hero to me. She's a muse. She's an artist. And she's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I don't want to hijack this panel, but I have something important to ask her. Natalie, are you married?
Post pictures and let the con know that you love us. Thank you guys for coming out.
Check out Sean Long, Jason David Frank, Tommy the Green Ranger.